You are watching The Horizon, the voice of the Amber Woman, exclusively on ABC Amber TV.
The number one most important thing for every Ambazonian to do right now is the draft. We stand at the threshold of an existential struggle, a pivotal juncture in our proud history that brooks no failure, tolerates no hesitation. So we will draft incessantly, individually, within the warm, vibrant tapestries of our communities. We will draft. We must draft. Draft, for in this paramount task, our draft lies the power to liberate Ambazonia.
Sovereign silhouette, the emblem of Ambazonia. From the azure embrace of the Atlantic reflecting from the Ambers Bay, the iconic Fako Mountain ascends with a silent, stoic grace, carving a silhouette against the sky. This towering sentinel is more than a geographical marvel. It is the heart of southern Cameroons, the stoic guardian of Ambazonia, a symbol steadfast as the unyielding spirit manifests in the unity of the land's 13th counties. Encircling this earthen spire, a dove of peace edges its arc, untouched and serene. As it soars with wings unfurled, it casts shadows upon the land, each feather a brushstroke of tranquility. Against the canvas of the heavens, 13 stars glimmer, the celestial acknowledgement of each county's shared dreams and harmonious virtues. The dove, in its eternal flight, is not merely a bird, but an embodiment of the collective longing for a peaceful existence under a shared identity. Beneath the mountain top, firmly grounded in the richness of the earth, twin elephant tusks rise as natural monuments. Their arcs, regal and commanding, capture the noble essence of the land's spirit animals. This emblem, this seal of Ambazonia, is no mere insignia. It is the beacon that illuminates the path to shared prosperity. It is an oasis of unity in a world parched by discord, a visual whisper of a nation's promise, echoing across generations. Every curve, every symbol within the emblem tells the story of southern Cameroons, an epic scripted by the enduring strength and unity of its communities. Each page imbued with the hopes and enduring spirit of its people. Sovereign silhouette, the emblem of Ambazonia.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are listening to the horizon. This is Ma Patience, your host for today's show. Let me start by wishing everyone a blessed Good Friday. We are in the last phase of Holy Week, and we wish you a happy Easter. We want to talk about two important topics today. A few weeks ago, on the horizon, we talked about all the institutions, or most of the institutions, that Ambazonia has lost, or that have been closed down, or that have been destroyed due to La Republic's influence. Today, we want to talk about two topics that are somehow related to that topic from a few weeks ago. We want to talk about corruption in La Republic, a look into salaries of ministers and those in the upper echelons of government. We also want to talk about another topic called capital flight and the case particularly of La Republique du Cameroon and Ambazonia. With me today on the horizon is no other than Dr. Fred Lobadi, our historian, who is very knowledgeable on all of these topics that we're going to discuss today. Doctor, welcome to the horizon, the voice of the Amber Woman.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be with you again and our people, and we hope that the information we share with them will be helpful to help them to understand truly what's going on and why the country and the people are kept in abject poverty and suffering.
Absolutely. Doc, let's start with the topic of capital flight. I think it's something that is more extensive than the second topic, so we'll probably spend more time on capital flight. For the lay person listening, what exactly is the meaning of capital flight?
So, capital flight includes so many different components. You have resources, material things. You also have like brain, which are other human resources. When they move from one location to another, and the location receiving these resources benefits from it, but the one that lost it suffers from it. So, in our context, we're talking about like natural resources, money, and all kinds of tangible material things leaving Africa to Western Europe and North America, but also human resources like natural intelligence. Like you see, we are very well educated and well trained. And instead
Right.
of being at home among our people serving them, we are in, again, the so called industrialized world, serving them with our knowledge so that the little we can do is perhaps send something that we have earned to help our people who are suffering. While if we were at home, we would have used the knowledge we have acquired to help our people do better and serve them do better. Instead, not only are these material things like money and natural resources carried away, but also the brains have been carried away. So capital flight is more than just like money. It includes the natural brains and intelligence and the human power of the people. They're carried away to serve another region than where it came from.
Yes, so you're telling us that capital flight really involves the outflow of money, of resources, and resources including human resources and material resources from a territory, and that is what we are facing in Ambazonia significantly. Let's even delve into this further. I'm going to read something briefly, and then I will have you comment on it. This has to do with outbound money transfers tripled in 5 years from the CEMAC regions. So I'll just read a brief introduction on that part, and then I'll have you talk about. It says outgoing money transfers from CEMAC countries, which Cameroon is one of, to the rest of the world have increased from 2,000, 2.816 billion in 2018, and this is billion CFA, pardon me, to 10.12 billion CFA in 2022. So within a period of 5 years, the amount practically tripled. The central bank Bo revealed in its recent report on money transfers in the region. I don't want to read further. I just want you to talk about the significance of this.
I think what you are talking about is trillion, not billion. So you talked about 2 point something, that's over 2,000 billion, which is trillion. And then it's gone from 2,000, that's 2,000 trillion to over 10,000 trillion. That is the amount of money that has been siphoned away from Central African nations, which includes Cameroon, Chad, Central African Republic, Gabon, Congo, and Equatorial Guinea. So this, we're only talking here about money. So this is money that has been deliberately, purposefully carried away from the land, money that would have benefited the people, and carried away to other territories and invested there and kept there. And the guys who did this, they have the illusion that the money belongs to them, but it does not really belong to them, because eventually they will die and not enjoy that money. The money basically was translated to another territory, like Switzerland in this case, where the money stays in the banking system and finances economic activities all across Europe and the Western world. And our people don't have access to this money. So we're talking about trillions of CFA, of money. You know that the GDP of Cameroon, when that's the money that the country produces alone in 1 year, in terms of dollars, is about $44 billion. You multiply that by 600, you have the amount of money that the country produces in 1 year for all economic activity. And the government will tell you that their budget, what the government budgets, is somewhere between 8,000 billion, $6 to $8,000 billion. But when you realize that even much more than what the government is budgeting to use is carried away, so much more money was produced and is not accounted for, that is siphoned away into offshore accounts and kept in foreign nations, particularly in Western Europe and in North America.
That is a shame. That is such a shame. So, what really causes capital flight? Why does capital flight happen in the country?
Now, you remember we had talked in one of our programs, is maybe 6 weeks or more ago, about the colonial masters who came to Africa to extract our resources, and after they were compelled to give a semblance of independence, they truly did not want to leave. So they put puppets in place that they use to continually extort or carry away the resources of the country. So we know for the case of Cameroon and French-speaking Africa about the French cooperation agreement that they did in 1959 and signed with Ahidjo before French Cameroon had its semblance of independence, which we know they don't have. So basically, these foreign nations, the individuals use governments. So they use like the government of France in this case, or in other cases, they can use the government of the United States or Britain. They're using the foreign governments to control, like our puppets in Africa, in this case, Paul Biya, and his collaborators around him, whom you can call ministers and delegates, all those people that he approves to be his collaborators. they use those individuals to ensure that that policy of transferring all the resources of the country abroad is carried out. That's actually what is going on. So what they did is they crafted a secret society, which is international Freemasonry, Rosicrucianism, many others, where they co-opt these individuals they want to use and train them, indoctrinate them, and I personally believe hypnotize them to serve their purpose. And then, after they are convinced that these people will serve their interests, they give them foreign nationalities. So, for example, Bia is a French citizen. And many of those ministers you see are French citizens. They carry French passports. So they make them believe that they are different from their indigenous people from whom they came or among whom they live. So you think that you are different because you can anytime take a flight to France, you can anytime take a flight to a foreign nation, and your allegiance is not to your people, your allegiance is to the foreign country. So basically, the reason this capital flight is going on is that the whites in this case, who want to continually keep us in abject control and exploitation, have co-opted the puppets and their collaborators and enabled them through indoctrination in secret societies like Freemason International, Christianism, and many other names. You can give so many names to them, and then it made them feel that they are different from their country indigens, giving them, as I said, foreign passports that they own and they can fly anytime. They can always fly in and come in. And so they carry all this money away. The purpose was not to enrich these individuals. The purpose was to use them, make them feel they are different, that they are special, they are unique. And that way they carry all the money abroad and keep it. Particularly, you hear everybody talking about Switzerland, for example, is one of them. That is just the headquarters where they go hide the money. But they do it in so many parts all across Europe and also in North America. But that's why the capital flight, of course, they are compelled. And if you don't do what they tell you to do, they'll kill you. And if you're lucky, if you are not towing the line, they can spare your life, but they'll remove you. This, which is what happened to Ahijo. So when Ahijo at one point was in trying to do things in favor of Cameroonians and not in line with what the French wanted, then they brought in the person that they had indoctrinated and trained to serve them. They brought in Bia by deceiving Ahijo that he was sick when he was not sick. And so Ahijo thought he was truly sick and believed what they said and stepped aside, and they put Bia in. And actually, if Bia does not do what they want, they will get him out. And that's what is happening not only in Cameroon, but across. And when the people get well informed, like happened in Senegal, they know exactly what is going on and they stand their ground, these people will be swept out. They want to keep the people in ignorance, keep them not to know what's going on so that this process continues. And what happens in Cameroon, for example, alcohol is one of the major means they use to keep them in ignorance. Cameroon alone, the people of Cameroon consume over 800 billion francs in alcoholism every year. So they spend a lot of money drinking and they entertain them with like soccer and other activities so that they don't spend time thinking. And as long as they are not using their brains and they are not thinking and they don't know what's happening, then the exploitation takes place. Just like the wood is being cut and carried abroad, just like the petroleum and other natural resources are carried abroad, so too the money and other things. That's what's actually going on.
Thank you so much, Doc. Let me read this abstract from an article that was written by someone called Luense Dikumana. This was published in August 14, 2023, less than a year ago. And it puts things in perspective, really. And the topic is capital flight from natural resources, dependent African countries. Updated estimates and analysis for the cases of Cameroon, Ghana, and Zambia. And this was for a period of from 1970 to 2021. So I'll just read this abstract part of it, and then you'll talk some more about it. This paper is part of a project that investigates domestic and global drivers and enablers of capital flight from Cameroon, Ghana, and Zambia, 3 countries that are significantly endowed in natural resources. It presents estimates of capital flight from these three countries and discusses the key drivers of the phenomenon. The results show that as of 2021, estimated total capital flight stood at 17.1 billion for Cameroon.
71 point something.
I mean, $71.1 billion. So it's dollars now. $71.1 billion for Cameroon, $50 billion for Ghana, and 71.5 billion for Zambia. External borrowing, and in the case of Zambia and Cameroon, trade misinvoicing are key correlates of capital flight. While external borrowing directly and indirectly drives capital flight, trade misinvoicing constitutes an important mechanism of unrecorded cross-border capital flows. This study contributes to the efforts to uncover the mechanisms and enablers of capital flight from Africa, with the aim of shedding light on possible strategies to curb further capital outflows in the context of efforts to scale up and diversify development financing to support recovery from global crisis, the transition to green growth, and sustainable development in Africa. So, Doc, I just wanted to focus on one thing for now, misinvoicing. Misinvoicing. Could you just shed some light as relates
Well, that
to
is done
La
on purpose. Actually, whatever information La Republique provides, or the World Bank, or the International Monetary Fund, is just for public consumption. You know, there is the true information that is hidden from the people, and there is the information they think is for the general knowledge of the public. So they may provide what you call an invoice. For example, they can claim that this is the budget of the country for 1 year, but actually what is happening is they're managing a lot more money than that. Or just like they claim that Bia, for example, is earning over $600,000 a year, but we know that he controls all the money in Cameroon. So that what you call the invoice there that is presented to the public is for public knowledge. It's just a little information that is provided. The truth is happening under the table, aside from the knowledge and view of the public. And even what is put in public, you see that it is misappropriated. So that's why they may have said, for example, when they were constructing the stadium, that they will put like 3,000 billion for the construction of stadia, and then the money disappears. Or money that was supposed to construct the road from Douala to Yaoundé and completed in a short while, the money is completed and not even 60 kilometers have been constructed because all of that money is gone. So that is another way of saying that by invoice you're going to spend this amount of money, but you realize that something else happens to it and the money is gone. But that general information that they put out to the public is for the public knowledge, but what is truly happening is underneath, which is not meant for the commoner's eyes. Let me put it that way.
And would you also think that when they do something like that, the bulk of the money goes into their own coffers and ends up in banks in Switzerland and God knows where?
Correct. Now, the individuals who are mainly Caucasians, whites, that control these puppets and their collaborators, they don't really care how much you think you have in your account. All they care about is that you carry everything that you have and deposit into their bank accounts. Because as long as the money is in Switzerland, say like Abacha had over $5 billion, but Abacha was living in Nigeria and he eventually died. You know, they killed him through the hand of a prostitute. But the money remained in Switzerland, and Nigeria was struggling and later only succeeded to get, they said, 400 million of the over 5 billion that he had carried away. But that money remains in the Swiss banks and runs the economy abroad. So they know that what you think you have is not benefiting you, but as long as it is in their accounts, it is serving their economies. So when you heard that Ali Bongo was deposed, and they mentioned that he had, for example, over 58 very costly mansions in Paris. I mean, he cannot be living in all of those mansions at the same time. those mansions need to be maintained. So the citizens of that country are employed and are benefiting and getting incomes from that. Plus, all the money that he has in the bank account is running the economy abroad. So what I mean is that they are only using them to carry the money away. So they may think, or as we call it, they have been corrupted to carry the money and put it in their personal pockets. But the goal is for them to carry the money out and put it abroad. So they are just being used to keep the population in poverty. Because if that money were, for example, in Cameroon or in the local economy, the people can take it to do business and it would improve the situation, but they don't want it. So they just use these individuals. They're just being used as tools. Just like you have gloves in your hands, they are used as tools to carry away the money. It doesn't matter how you call it, corruption or embezzlement, or those are just ways by which the money is being carried away.
Absolutely. And particularly for our case, let's even go now to natural resources. So people understand that Amazonia is blessed with natural resources. And the only reason La Republic really wants to hang on us is because of that fact. Um, Talking about capital flight as relates to natural resources, this study that I mentioned, the author did categorize capital flight based on fuel that is exported, ores, metals, precious stones, and non-monetary gold in one category, coffee, tea, cocoa, spices, and manufacturers of things using all those products, including also timber, manufactures goods, and the percent exports. So there's a table that shows Cameroon high on the table with the capital flight in all these categories. Now, when you think about what is happening in Ambazonia, the killing of our people, the fact that La Republique will not leave us, despite the fact that they consider us to be dogs and cockroaches, what do you want our people to understand in terms of the fact that they really need to resolute and fight for their land? Because eventually, when we have Amazonia, we will have the means of curbing capital flight. So what information do you want to let the people know that are watching this
Basically,
program?
the only reason La Republique and the French are interested in Ambazonia are the richness, the wealth, the resources, and natural resources that is in the land of Ambazonia. Even the British, they called the former British Southern Cameroons a treasure trove. You can go and Google the meaning of a treasure trove. That is a place with a lot of different treasures that are innumerable and immeasurable that you cannot even talk about. That's what the British said. And you know that after the transaction had occurred, Charles de Gaulle said that the Southern Cameroon was a small gift from the Queen of England. And so the French see us as their thing. And La Republique, I remember all the so-called leaders there, Biya and his collaborators. You can call whoever he has not thrown in jail. And if you don't toe the line, they accuse you of embezzlement and throw you in jail. But as long as you're serving the interests as they want, then you are in their good books, and they let you go around doing the mischief that they're doing. So La Republique is not really interested in Ambazonia. And if you remember, at the peak of economic activity and no war, Ambazonia alone was producing over 60% of the GDP of Cameroon. Now, we have mentioned some countries here and their GDPs. If you look at some of those articles, they say Ghana is producing about over 70, like $73 billion for their economic activity in 1 year. Cameroon only produces about $44 billion for economic activity in 1 year. But if you look at the geographic location of Ghana and Cameroon, Ghana, first of all, is only about 1/3 the size of Cameroon. Almost all the same agricultural products, whether it's gold, we have it in Cameroon. Remember, Donga Mantung has a lot of gold. There are so many other different areas that have a lot of gold. Cameroon has even more oil than Ghana. And then whether it's cocoa, all the other products are all in Cameroon. So if Ghana, that smaller country, small in size, less than one third the size of Cameroon, produces $75 billion in economic activity, but Cameroon is only producing 44, you can see that we are not up to our highest potential. Now, on the other hand, if you look at how much money was carried away by the elites, as they call them, those who are collaborating with those Caucasians that want to keep us in abject poverty and steal our resources. In Ghana, they took away about $40 billion, but in Cameroon, they took over 73 or $71.3 billion. So you realize that Cameroon is producing less than its highest potential. And even the little that we do produce, all of it almost is carried away abroad, so that the country is left in abject poverty. You mentioned timber, it's just one of them. You see that because when you go around the port of Douala or you go to the south, you see how from all across Cameroon, especially in the forested areas, not only Ambazonia, but even in Bia's region, all the historic old trees are cut down and the timbers carried to the port of Douala and carried away abroad. You can see that. That is one thing you can see with your eyes. But there are other things that people do not see with their eyes. Those are like the gold and so many different kinds of natural resources that are there. And then not to talk about money, the money that is produced within the banking system. So, for example, when goods were leaving Nigeria to enter La Republique to Cameroon and come through Ambazonia by a cock, what the customs officers collect for taxes on those goods, they were literally sending helicopters from Yaoundé to fly to a cock and carry that money back to the presidency. So the presidency gets direct hand on the money collected in a cock from just taxation of goods entering through the route of a cock. And this happens in all the other areas, like the money that goes through the northern parts of Cameroon and other places. They make sure that they collected that. So you have money, natural resources, all of that. The president keeps it in his hand and basically carries it away. So the reason they don't want to leave Ambazonia is because of the resources and the treasure trove that Ambazonia is. They do not love the people of Ambazonia and the human beings living in Ambazonia. They don't care about them. They can kill them like they did in Legnos, when they tested a military weapon there in 1986 and killed the people. They don't care about them. They want but the natural resources. That's why La République, being used by the French, does not want to leave Ambazonia alone because of the natural resources and the richness and the wealth that is in the land.
Absolutely, Doc. So the thing that is frustrating is that people don't realize that the adapt poverty that we're experiencing is really a direct result of this capital flight. We have governments in place that do not care for the common person. Even those who are in La Republique themselves, their leader, their president doesn't care for them. But that's a different story. And the fact that people who are living in a wealthy land, look at the Saudi Arabia, how it's such a small land and has so much oil and is so wealthy that the population, the people benefit from that wealth. That's not the case with La République du Cameroun and Ambazonia. This is just to make us understand that this fight we are in for freedom is so important because future generations cannot continue living in so much poverty when we have been blessed with a very rich territory, rich land. So the impact of this capital flight basically is that it causes the government to have a weak economy.
Mhm.
That is just as simple as it is. And those who are, which we're going to be going to the next topic soon about salaries of those who are high in government. Those who are high in government, they don't care because they are already feeding on the fat, and it doesn't matter to the average person. Um, but as we conclude this topic, I just want to read this so that when we leave here, people understand fundamentally why this is relevant. They say in economics, capital flight is a phenomenon characterized by large outflows of assets and capital from a country due to some events, resulting into negative economic consequences to that country. So the take-home message is that this capital flight that is happening leaves La République du Cameroon and Ambazonia with negative consequences. And that negative consequences is basically you, your parents, your siblings, your children do not have the opportunity to prosper in a land that is rightfully rich, rightfully owned by you. Doc, as we conclude this, we know that the reasons that capital flight really happened is because of political reasons also and economic reasons, greed and all the like. But as we conclude this topic to go into the one that has to do with corruption and the salaries, what is your final take-home message to everybody listening to us?
Correct. So you realize if you were living, say, in the West, like here or in Europe, and you had a great idea of something you can do to, to engage in an economic activity, you don't have to be employed by the government. Like in Cameroon, you have to join the civil service, and you don't have money. You don't necessarily have to not be able to actualize your goals. You develop your program, you go to the bank, and you request for a loan, and the bank will give you the loan, and it is at an interest rate. You do the activities, generate income, and you pay the bank. Not only the money, but you pay the interest, and you progress and do extremely very well. But just let our people think for themselves. How many of them can go up to a bank and say, I have this ingenious idea to employ myself by doing this economic activity. Can you give me a loan? Hardly any of them will be given a loan. And you realize that even those that are given loans are those that are serving the interest of the sitting so-called government. And even after they have taken the loan, they refuse to pay because they are in the good books of the government and the army will do them nothing. So basically what you realize is that the money that has gone away has by capital flight, if it had been in our land and available in the banks, you will be able to take care of yourself. If you have a great idea of, for example, building an infrastructure, going to rural areas, bringing food to town, storing it in a good way, like using refrigerators and selling it to our people and making profit for yourself, you will be able to go to bank and take a loan and do those things. But unfortunately, it's not available. So what do our mothers do? They struggle in the farm, bring perishable food to the market, which is not stored in very hygienic ways. And after a few days, the food perishes. And they have lost all that human effort to go to the farm and even bribing the police on the side of the road as they were carrying it there. And now you see that the so-called mayors want to take money from them for the location where they're putting these things, and it perishes. But an ingenious person could have known that I can use refrigerators, deep freezers, and store those things, and they will not perish for a long, long time. So you can still make money out of it. But you need money. But if you go to the bank, you cannot get a loan. So what is happening is what belongs to us has been carried away and is serving a different economy, and our people are kept in abject poverty and suffering. That is basically the effect of the capital flight.
Wow. That is why we are fighting. That's why we need to free our land, because there is no way with the knowledge, the human resources that we have, the intellect that we have, the fact that Southern Cameroonians and Ambazonians are generally trustworthy people. In general, we are trustworthy people. We're not those who just, as I say, chop broke pan, because that's the mentality of La Republic. They don't think about the future. It's just what happens to me today. That's what I am here for. But not Ambazonia. That's why we're really, really trying to free homeland, so that we'll have a country where capital flight will not be a problem. Because the less the capital flight, the more advanced the nation, because that wealth will stay in the country. And as Doc just explained, any mama, any papa who wants to borrow money for whatever reason will be able to do so without fear, will be able to do so to plan a better life for his or her family. We just need to be educated about all these ills of La République du Cameroon, so that we can differentiate, we can know that there's a huge, it's day and night. The difference between La République du Cameroon and Ambazonia is day and night. We want to make sure that you listening do whatever you can, be it drafting, being supporting your fellow Ambazonia one way or the other. Please do that. We're going to move to the second topic that has to do with corruption, looking at the salaries of those that are in high positions in the government. The corruption is just so much endemic in that area that it's not even a joking matter. It's like the norm. It's what they breathe, they drink. It's in their blood. You see that every level, you know, in scale levels. When you're traveling from one area to the other, you see how those who are on the road take monies from poor people and put it in their pockets before they are allowed to go further. But I digress. Let's go to the salaries. Doc, I'll just let you talk. What can you tell us about the salary schemes of those who are in government in La Republic, the ministers, the directors, and what is really happening?
So basically, they are being incentivized by what they are calling a salary and other benefits to carry out the purpose of those who use the puppet. What I'm saying is that they are being made to feel different because they have more than they need to take care of their basic needs, to carry out the purpose of carrying away our resources to the white man's country. And that's what is actually going on here. So when you start, say, giving figures for the ordinary Cameroonian, where they tell you before the current crisis, where they increase increase the taxation on everything, they said that the minimum wage will be like 32,000 francs. Imagine yourself living in Yaoundé or Douala on 32,000 francs. It's unimaginable. You can't even live on that. And they said that after the taxation and the people were getting angry, they increased it to 40 something thousand. So you think about that. Think about what they call the minimum wage that you will be paid in big cities like Yaoundé and Douala and other places, not even in the rural area where you can harvest some food from the farm. So that you put that in context with what is called the income of the ministers and the lead collaborators. I call them all collaborators of the puppet being used by the West. And remember, the numbers that you will find is not all that they get. They sum it up by saying that they appoint you to a position and you will enjoy all the benefits associated with your position. So what are all those other benefits, among others, besides what is called here the salary that you see on paper, which is what the general public can see? These people have free luxury housing. They have multiple free cars for themselves and their cooks and their servants. They have free food, literally free food, meat, everything. They don't have to worry about that because it's given to them for free. And so this money is just money that is put in your account. But you have many other things. And as an ordinary Cameroonian. For example, before you get a service from these individuals, you have to give them bribes again. Before they do what they're supposed to do in an office they're occupying, people give them bribes. And there are different multiple levels of bribery. When I used to study in Germany, I knew people who came to Germany for business people in Cameroon, who came to shop things to give the governor in Bamenda. That was in the mid 1980s. That means they came to Germany to buy things that will come and give the governor so that the governor will sign things that they need to do their economic activities as ordinary people. So what you call salary is just a little portion of that. And besides this salary, I want people to also understand that the French, who are those we see, and there are many people behind them, the French is just being used as the government, have incentivized them by giving them French nationality. So they have French nationality, French passport, and they feel different. They think they are not like the mommy who is selling, okra or tomatoes by the side of the road, and when the rain falls, the whole thing perishes. They think they are different from those. They don't regard them as anything because they have their French passport. They're living in affluence. Most of them have like 6 or even 10 cars given to them free by the government, besides what they can buy with their own money. And then aside from that, what they are supposed to do in that position, the money that was allocated for their services, they embezzle, misappropriate. That's now what you call the true corruption. So this one that is put here is supposed to be an income. But the corruption that we talk about is like they gave you money, for example, to construct the road from Douala to Yaoundé, or the one from Bafoussam to Bamenda, or to construct the stadia, and they basically take it away and put it in their personal accounts abroad, and some of it in their homes. And I would tell you, less than 1% of money that they have embezzled is in Cameroon. That means what you see in their houses, what you find in their homes, that is less than 1% of what they have embezzled. What they have embezzled is abroad, offshore accounts.
Yes, I'm going to read some of these salaries that I have, which is for the directors, some directors of some of the institutions, so people know what we are talking about. And this is this is really extravagant. So let me read it, though. For the director of CRTV is 7 million CFA francs a month. Doc, this is
Correct.
a month, right? This is
Correct.
ridiculous.
And that's peanut.
This is just a salary. So CRTV, 7 million francs CFA a month. The company called CSPH, 9 million francs a month. CNPS, 11 million francs a month. PAD, 23
That is the director
million.
of the autonomous port of Douala. That is the seaport, the director of the seaport in Douala.
Which one is that?
That's the PAT. That's the director
PAD,
of
okay,
the
director of
port.
seaport. Okay. What about PAK, 15 million francs CFA a month. Camtel, 30 million francs CFA a month. SNH, 45 million CFA a month. So, Camer, 13 million CFA a month. CAA, CAR, 25 million CFA a month. ART, I don't know some of these institutions, but
These are just so-called
La Republique,
semi-private
probably know them.
that the government controls. Correct.
25 million CFA a month. Credit Foncier, 15 million CFA a month. SNI, 25 million CFA a month. CDC, which we know, 30 million CFA a month. TRADEX, 30 million CFA a month. SRC, 15 million CFA a month. FICOM, FEICOM, 15 million CFA a month. ARMP, 13 million CFA a month. AER, 15 million CFA a month. Sonara, 25 million CFA a month. Camwater, 15 million CFA a month. Douala Stock Exchange, 11 million CFA a month. SCDP, 15 million. FNI, 12 million. SICAM, 20 million. API, 10 million. ADC, 7 million. Susukam, 30 million CFA a month. And this is just salary. Go ahead, Doc.
Correct. So, like I mentioned, this is just salary. It does when you see those appointments from BA, it says and all benefits attached to the position. Like I said, those benefits include free luxury housing, then free vehicles for transportation, including not only for the person going from home to work, but for all their servants, the cook going to the market to buy food and bring. And many of them have like 10 different cars given to them for free, petrol to run those cars for free, and so many other benefits that you cannot even enumerate. That is separate from what you call here income. And people will need to put this in context with what they call the minimum wage, which is like 45,000 francs a month. Put this in context with that.
Yeah, exactly. Put that in context with what the average person has to live on. This is theft. And then there's that interesting case of someone. I'll let you talk about it. There are people that are there that have so many accounts that the government is paying them multiple times under different names, and they're getting billions and billions of CFA. Tell us about that particular case.
Basically, you realize that those who directly control the money, that is what it. Remember, we're only talking about money here. We're not even talking about the natural resources, the trees and golds and stuff. Those who directly control the money, the president puts his own people there, preferentially his cousins and family members and relatives, possibly all even from his village. And so they are the ones who control. That's why you see that the Minister of Finance is always somebody from his village. Now, there was one guy there who was supposed to be the director of budget, the director of paying people their money, who ensured that every month he was paid the salary of 2,130 individuals. That means he misappropriated other people's money and took them as one person. So each month, he alone was getting 1.8 billion francs each month. So multiply that by 12, you have over 20 billion in 1 year. And he did that for over 10 years. So then you can multiply by 10, he's getting over 200 billion of money that he has stolen. This has nothing to do with what his income for that position is, which is similar to the 13,000 that we were talking about. And you have people in Bia's village who are not civil servants, who are not employed, who are being paid monthly salaries. While on the other hand, you have Cameroonian children who have struggled through school education, even bribed their way into professional schools and come out as maybe teachers from ENS or doctors. And they have been assigned, finally given a job to go work somewhere, and they go for years, 5, 10 years, without an income. And when those same individuals go in front of this director to ask for their money from the Ministry of Finance, they tell them, we can only give you 30% if you allow me to keep 70%. So that's what's going on. And that's why some of those finance ministers like Meva Mebutu, who is supposed to be the Secretary of the Senate, when he was Minister of Finance and left, they found 100 billion francs in his house, but nobody coughed about it. So that's the money that is being carried away directly. Now, what you need to think is, do you think that the junior servants or collaborators of Alibaba will steal so much. And how much does Alibaba steal? Just think it for yourself. Basically, that's why you read Messi's book, that by 1990, Biya had emptied all the banks in Cameroon. He just goes to the bank and asks how much money is in there and carries it away. So don't worry about what they call his salary. He takes away all the money, and when for each flight he's taking abroad, they carry bags. All those containers that they put in there are full of money. So he just goes around with the money. When the president of Tunisia was pushed out, they went to his house. They found out that in the walls, if you open the wall, it was all full of money. If you go to Vomeka, you will find a lot of money that Biya has hidden there. Besides the ones that he has carried away and is hiding them in Switzerland, where he likes to go and hide frequently. And not only in Switzerland, I went to Baden-Baden, where he has businesses, and I saw them. And many other places all across Europe and in France. And he does gambling. So that in 1987, he came, remember 87, when he had just come to power in 1982. So just 5 years after he came to power, he went to a gambling place in Baden-Baden, and in one night, he gambled away 850 million francs. The Germans were writing in the books that the president of a poor African country came and gambled in one night 850 million francs. Do you know how many more times he had gambled before and how many more times he has gambled afterwards? This is the money that is being carried away. The people who own those gambling places don't care. They just want the money carried away from Africa into their accounts. You can call it a game that you were having pleasure playing a game, but all they care is that the money left Africa and is in their accounts that they can use abroad, while the people are left and kept in abject poverty and suffering. They don't care about our people. So this is just the peak of the iceberg. The salary is just a symbol. And like I said, they are even incentivized by giving French nationality with free passport and everything. So they just see them driving around in Mercedes and calling themselves your ministers. They are not there for the people. They are there to serve the interest of those who want them to carry away the resources out of the country.
I want that what you just said to sink in for people to really understand when they compare to what they are really experiencing. And we're talking about people that are educated and they cannot even earn up to 100,000 a year, a month, or 200,000 CFA a month. So you had one individual, and this is probably something that is happening with many other people, but you have a case of one individual that opened over 2,000 accounts, you said, and every month in the ministry, and every month, so much money is put into those accounts to benefit that one single individual.
Correct. 1.8 billion francs CFA.
That is criminal. That is
Correct.
criminal. And mind you, he's not the only one doing something like that.
Correct.
There are so many of them doing the same thing.
The sitting minister of finance, who is from Biya's village, when his son was getting married in Hilton Hotel in Yaoundé, he spent over $8 million for the celebration. So just think about it. $8 million for the wedding ceremony of his son. And many of them, they even now don't do it in Cameroon. They go and spend that money, but in Dubai. So they go and rather have fun in Dubai. You know how expensive it's going to be. A hotel in Dubai can cost even $5,000 a night. So now you don't see them now in Hilton because they have translated that momentary pleasure back to Dubai. So all the money goes away. That's what it's all about. Everything that they are doing is about the money, and so they can pretend to you that they are ruling. They're trying to. There's no justice. The justice is applied to maintain what they are doing. That's why Biya said, you can never change the form of state. That means do anything you can say you are going on the streets, but don't change what's going on right now. It must stay that way. And then if you don't fall in line, then what they call judicial system, remember these are all criminals. I've just mentioned to you, these are all criminals. Then they accuse you of having embezzled whatever, like Mebara and all the others. So if you don't do what they think you should have been doing to be in their good books, then they accuse you that you have embezzled and then throw you in jail. And people say, oh, he was thrown in jail for embezzling. Instead, Those people that are in the good books of beer that are not in jail are the worst embezzlers, are the worst criminals, are those who carried away the most money. But they do everything possible to fight for him so that they stay in his good books and not end up in Kondingi.
This is really painful when we talk about such matters. Uh, when you were talking about people going to the bank to borrow money, these individuals who are earning such a high, by the way, Doc, I just have to ask you this question. Do you have any statistics on how much ministers themselves earn?
Correct. In the books of Cameroon, if you look at the documents about the salaries of those directors, first of all, the ministers earn more than is told. What they said, because somebody may listen to this program, come up with this, they will say that a minister is supposed to earn 750,000 francs a month. And then a minister delegates 650 million francs million a month. And then a secretary of state 550 million and so forth. This is, again, like I said, information for the public eye.
Mm-hmm.
The true amount, remember, they have an other benefits, which includes their houses and other things. The true amount is you cannot talk about it. That's why the Secretary of the President of the Republic embezzled the money that was designed to build the stadium and the roads, and he embezzled close to over 6,000 billion francs CFA. I hope people understood what I said. I said 6,000 billion francs, which is more than 2/3 of the budget of the government of Cameroon. Just one person embezzled that. So when this information that they tell you is the salaries is just for the public eye, it's not what is truly happening under the table, and that's why the country is suffering. Besides the fact that, remember, the French had an agreement that they must keep all their money in the French treasury in 1959. Then they reduced it from 100% to 65%, and now it's supposed to be 50%. So most of what Cameroon owns, they are compelled to keep it in the French treasury. And the little that we have that we can use is still carried away. So what you're seeing here and what we are talking about does not constitute the 50% that is in the French treasury to run the French civil service.
And that's how this even correlates with capital flight that we talked about earlier, because let's just even assume that these unfair salaries that they have, let's even just assume that they took that money and put them in banks in La République du Cameroun and Ambazonia, so that the people can benefit from those money. That would be something else, because when you put your money in the bank as a savings, you may have the bank paying you some sort of interest, whatever the amount may be, when your money is there left for some period of time. And then others can borrow that money and expand on their goals in life. But that's not the case. This all correlates to capital flight, where they take that money, either they hide them in boxes in their homes, or they ship them abroad to banks in Switzerland and the Cayman Islands and all over the place. And the people that are doing most of the work do not benefit at all. I say that is criminal.
Correct. And that's why they are foolish.
Go ahead.
They are foolish because they have been deceived to think that they are different from just regular human beings. They will still live and die, from between 80, 90, 100 years, they still die. So what you realize is that people like Mobutu, I'm just giving examples here, when he felt like he was the Superman in Zaire, they deceived him, he carried away a lot of money. But when he was deposed, the French that were using him refused him from coming to live in France. They made him go and stay in Spain in a hospital when he was sick, and when he died, he was buried in Morocco. The Bokassa that they used, they took him to France after they had impoverished him personally. Then they deposed him to Ivory Coast, and he was barely struggling to carry some few leftovers of his family. And Ahidjo that they had used, after Biya had kicked him out being used by the French, they sent him to Senegal, where he stayed and died. So these individuals deceive themselves that, oh, I have so many properties in France, I have so many bank accounts across Europe, while they're living in Africa. And yes, they have the money in the houses and in some few money in the banks that they have hidden in Cameroon. And instead, if they used what they had, it can help the people in their local communities. So the little that they have, if they had only invested it to create some business opportunities, because you cannot sleep on two beds at the same time, you cannot sleep
No,
in two rooms at the same time. But if you
rooms.
use the money to create opportunities so that young people who don't have jobs can have jobs, it will help the people. But they have been indoctrinated, I personally believe hypnotized, that they only think about themselves and carry this money and even hide it in the houses. That's why Mebengo, when they put him in jail, he had aspirations to think that he would replace Bia. So they faked something and put him in jail. And when they were going to investigate money that he had stolen, they found so much money in euros and dollars and franc CFA in his house that he gave instructions for the money to be burnt. I don't know whether people remember. But they went and burned a lot of money that he had hidden in house. And this is just one house. He does not own only one house. He owns many houses in Yaoundé, in Douala, and his village. And besides money that he has in the bank. So only money that was burned in the house was so much. You can only imagine what was in his other houses and what was in his banks in Cameroon, and not to mention what he has in banks across Europe. And I hear he had luxury apartments in the most costly, luxurious neighborhood in Paris. So they pride themselves, and now he's sitting in Koningui because Biya didn't want him to compete with his son. And so when they bring him to court, then he comes with a wine and he's allowed to put a coat like he's a big guy and he's drinking his wine. They are just basically foolish because they think they have something and they're enjoying, but they are not really enjoying because they will still die after a while, like Mobutu did, like Abacha did, like all the others have died. And then that money that would have helped their own people is translated abroad. And
Exactly.
some of them, they go even to their village and only concentrate upon their little whatever they think they have. It doesn't matter how large it is. So when Meva Mebutu died, they built his gravesite to look luxurious with lights and a very costly infrastructure. But the village does not have roads, does not have water. So now you are taking care of the crops that will rot off. It doesn't matter how you preserve it in a luxury thing, just so people will say he's a big guy. So they are just stupid, basically. They're foolish, unwise.
Yeah, they are really foolish. And we live in the United States of America. And Doc, you know that if somebody is employed and the very first week that they start working, even they go for training, they get paid. They get paid the next pay period.
Mhm.
You know, they get paid the next pay period. But in La République du Cameroon, you have all those ministers that have their salaries guaranteed. And then you have people that have jobs that have to chase their salaries for years. You know, before this, our fight for independence started when we were growing up, we're living in Yaoundé, my parents. I cannot count the number of people that came from travel from Bamenda or travel from Buea to come to Yaoundé to chase documents so that they could get paid. What a corrupt system. What a
Mhm.
corrupt system. Meanwhile, those that are directors and ministers, their salaries are guaranteed. They come like clockwork. And the simple man that is working every night and day has to spend extra money to go bribe to be able to get their own salaries to pass. What a system. My fellow Ambazonians, brothers and sisters, you're watching this program. These are the reasons we are fighting to liberate our land. Because Ambazonia, the beautiful Ambazonia that we have, will not be like this. Will not be like this. The first day you have your job, you start working, you are guaranteed to have your income in a short period of time. Doc, we're going to be closing this program any moment now. I don't know what
Mhm.
your final thoughts are so that people understand why we are really comparing La Republique, telling the truth about what La Republique is, and why we should continue to keep our eyes on the ball, why we need to free our homeland.
Correct. So basically, what you realize is that the youth of many countries across French Africa, in this case, their eyes have been opened. That's why you saw what happened in Senegal. They got up and they fought for their country, and they identified the enemy. They said it was the French, and started destroying French businesses. And so Macron had to give instructions to Macky Sall to release the guy from jail. When uh, the young are informed about what is going on, they instead of sitting quiet, they will get up and fight for their rights. So you
Exactly.
see it everywhere. When I was in Tunisia, or in this case, you see it in what is called the Sahel region of Africa and Senegal most recently. All the nation rose up, and the French wanting to use the president, that the puppet they were using, Macky Sall, they played a trick, postponed the election, then locked up like they did Canto, the person that they were fearing the most, and then disbarred him. They claimed that he had written some information on social media against some authorities. So they locked him up, disbarred him from running, and he said his second in command should take over. And they locked that second in command. And the people went out on the streets, were demonstrating, and said the French are the enemy. They started destroying French businesses, asking the
Mhm.
French to get out. And that put pressure on Macron. And they had to hold the election, which was supposed to be in February. And the guy was postponing it to December. He held it in March. The guy that was in jail, he released 2 weeks before the election. And the guy won the elections. And they put a lot of candidates. There were, I think, over 10 going to 20 candidates. And they have this system where you have to get the majority before you win. So if you don't get over 50% in the first round, you have a second round. And just in one round, the guy had 57%. You don't even want to talk about the falsehood that they did in tallying the votes. We don't even want to go to that. In spite of that, this guy won 57%. And when he came, what did he say? They will break, they will create their own money and break away from the franc CFA. Basically, those
Mhm.
French accords that they had with African countries, that's what they are
Yeah.
chipping at. So Senegal just did that, Burkina Faso did that, Mali did that, Niger is doing that. But what you realize with those countries I just mentioned, they are homogeneous because most of them are Muslim, or all of them are Muslim. They
Mhm.
think as one. They don't drink to get drunk because they don't like alcohol. But if you come to the situation of Cameroon, they tell you that there are some people called Anglophones. So they make the Francophones to think that they are different from the Anglophones, and that when the Anglophones are bringing up these things, it is Anglophones causing problems. So they don't collaborate to work with the Anglophones to get rid of this corrupt government, which is what is happening. Then, like I mentioned, they make them drink and get drunk and intoxicated with wine, and then also rather be entertained with soccer and games, and so they don't think. They cannot go on as one. But those societies are homogeneous, they are Muslim. They act as one man. So now France is panicking. What are they going to do to restore their relationship? Don't think that Senegal has won. The French will still try in different
Mhm.
ways to get who has been elected to come back and allow the French to control the economy. That's why the French went to the man in Burkina Faso and tried to bribe him with 100 million euros, and he refused and gave that information public. So they will come try to bribe you, and then they will even send mercenaries to kill you. But because
Exactly.
those Muslim societies are homogeneous, even if they kill this guy, the population will know that it was done by the French, and they will still stand up against the French. So the people in Cameroon, not just Ambazonians, need to realize that what is going on and why they are living in so much abject poverty, to the extent that people put on CPDM clothes with BS effigy, go to Israelis and fight over 500 francs, which can hardly buy two puff puff. They fight over that with these people embezzling so much. They need to realize that their true enemies are those people who are in government being used by the French, and they need to stand up as one man against the French, because once they get up against the French, then the French will make sure that they get rid of Ali Baba and his 40 thieves on the ground. When the French realize that their economic interests are threatened and they are being exposed, then they will get rid of the puppets and their collaborators that they are using. Now, it's reached a point that these nations that are dissociating themselves from France and eventually the United States, because the Western nations will come back to using order. So while the French were being thrown out of Niger, they were using the United States Army to stay in France, in Niger. But
Mhm.
remember, Biden said he was going to collaborate with the French to solve problems in Africa. So if the United States remains, it means that the French are going to use the US to do what they want to do. So Niger now has turned and said they're asking American troops to get out. They don't want the Americans in their land. And so if you don't stand up against them, they will continue to use these people. And even after you have stood up against them, they will try ways to compromise you, call you to Paris, get you initiated into their secret societies. And that Senegalese president who just won mentioned those secret societies I talk about, Freemasonry and all that. So they'll get you initiated, compromise you with money, make you feel like you're better than your nationals so that you serve their interests. So people have to be vigilant. Even the Senegalese have to be vigilant to watch whether he's still who he was when he won the elections. Is he still doing what he said he was going to do? And also make sure that the French don't kill him, because they have already sent so many missions to go and kill the presidents of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. And so the Francophones have been deceived to think that they are different from Anglophones. And so when people speak, they say, oh, it was Anglophones, so don't listen to them. It was when Frundi spoke, for example, or when we are talking now. They say those are Anglophones. Then the Francophones think that they are different. But their true enemies are those in power that the French are using to impoverish the country, keep them in abject poverty, make them drink alcohol and get drunk, rather than think of how to liberate themselves from these suckers, basically, these criminals. That's what I would say there.
That has been a very powerful conclusion. So basically, my brothers and sisters, fellow Ambazonians, and this goes to everyone that is watching from La République du Cameroon, particularly our Ambazonians that are living there. Do not give up. Do not give up. Find a way to stay focused, because there is the sun shines at the end. The sun always comes up every single day. The sun always comes up every single day. We know that corruption is endemic in French Cameroon. It is in their core, and they picked it up from France. The typical French person is really corrupt. And we've already learned today how, based on this corruption, we've lost money. A lot of what is called capital flight has happened. And our people also that are suffering cannot benefit from the wealth that we have in our territory. We've learned that capital flight really diminishes the strength of the economy of a country. The purchasing power of citizens are reduced. There's devaluation of major assets because of capital flight. We've also learned how the corruption in the system has those who are in position, high positions in government, paid a high salary monthly for doing nothing. Really, for doing nothing. Can you list any ministry that is benefiting the common person? So they are getting all this wealth, but they're not building up the simple local person living in their territory. With that said, what will you do to make sure that Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia is free? What can you do to make that Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia is free? Because if you don't, then this adept poverty will continue, where La République will continue to exploit our people day in, day out. And your children will have no hope for the future. None whatsoever. Doc has already mentioned all the changes in Senegal, Mali, Burkina Faso, that their eyes have opened. France, sooner or later, will realize that it's best for them to partner with African countries. Partner, but not exploit them. Because that's the only way that they will not become a third country. I mean, an undeveloped country, because most of their development had been at the expense of African countries. But if they want to continue, they have to partner with African countries. But with that said, I want to thank everyone for being on the horizon, the voice of the Amber Woman. This Good Friday, I want to assure you that the president is on course. Those of you who are able to draft, please do so. Please do so, because that's the minimum we can do. Those of you who are not able to draft fully, give whatever you can. Nothing is too small. The 5 fingers on the hand are not equal. Some are able to, and some are able to do more than what is expected of them. Remember the story in the Bible where the woman went and gave all that she had because she believed in God. You know, we're not saying that you should give all that you have, but give something. And with that said, this is the voice of the Amber Woman. And I thank you all for being on the horizon. Thank you, Dr. Lubadi. You are always a source of information, a wealth of information. And we're sure you'll be back sometime next month. Thank you all. And again, wish you a happy Easter Sunday.
Wow. Mhm.
You are watching The Horizon, the voice of the Amber Woman, exclusively on ABC Amber TV.
The number one most important thing for every Ambazonian to do right now is the draft. We stand at the threshold of an existential struggle, a pivotal juncture in our proud history that brooks no failure, tolerates no hesitation. So we will draft incessantly, individually, within the warm, vibrant tapestries of our communities. We will draft. We must draft. Draft, for in this paramount task, our draft, lies the power to liberate Ambazonia. The number one most important thing for every Ambazonian to do right now